Let's talk rhythm. What do I mean by rhythm? Well, I'm talking about whole notes. I'm talking about half notes. I'm talking about quarter notes, eighth notes, 32nd notes, sixteenths, triplets, dotted notes, swing feel. And I think that's it. So, first of all, let me ask you this. If I say, what is a quarter note? Can you tell me? Can you tell me what a quarter note is? Chances are, if you're a beginner or even maybe an intermediate or even advanced musician, you might not have a really good way of describing what a quarter note is, or maybe you've heard the word before, but you just play music. Who knows what a quarter note is? Well, by the end of this video, hopefully you'll know what a quarter note is, and maybe also better understand why you might want to start studying these things. If you want a more general overview of time and music in general without getting into all these specifics yet, go check out my other video about time. The first thing we need to talk about is a whole note. Well, what is a whole note? Why is it called a whole note? Well, a whole note gets 4 beats. But why does it get 4 beats? It's because all of these notes we're going to talk about are named after a measure of 4/4 time. 4/4 time, we have the top number, which tells us how many beats there are per measure. A measure is just a grouping of beats. We have the bottom number, which tells us which note gets 1 beat. And in 4/4 time, a quarter note gets 1 beat. It's called a quarter note because in a measure of 4/4 time, it takes up 1/4 of the measure. There's your official definition. Anyway, so a whole note looks like this, gets 4 counts because it takes up a whole measure in 4/4 time. So I have this little drum groove going on here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's our tempo. So if we were to play a whole note over top of this beat, over top of this drum groove, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a whole note. Next, we have half notes. If I were to play a half note, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you guessed it, a half note takes up half of a measure. It gets 2 counts because half of 4 is 2. Half note, 2 counts, half a measure. Next is the quarter note, which we already talked about. There's 4 per measure. We count them 1, 2, 3, 4. They would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next up, we have eighth notes because they take up 1/8 of a measure. The other way to think about eighth notes is that there's 2 per beat. So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and we're going to start getting into counting now, which is part of the importance of this video, is understanding how to think about rhythms, how to count them, how to make sure you're playing them precise. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and if you listen to the way we say that, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and we're counting our beats, but we're using that word and to split it exactly in half. So we get 2 notes per beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4. So there's 2 eighth notes per beat, 8 eighth notes in a measure. Next is 16th notes. There's 16 in a measure. There's 4 per beat. We count them. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. And if you notice, we have 1E and 2E and so all of our previous counts are in that little old saying because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then between each of those we have the ands. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and our eighth notes. Then when we get to the 16th notes, we have E and filling in those gaps. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. Let me slow that down so you can practice counting those. 3 and 4 and so now our tempo is much slower. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So now if we were to count some 16th notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. The next is our 32nd notes, which we have 32 per measure. There's 8 of them per beat. The more common way that we think about 32nd notes, though, is that there's 2 per 16th note. So here's a really good demonstration of 32nd notes. Here we have our 16ths. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. But now I'm going to use 2 fingers on each hand. So in my head, I'm still thinking 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a, but each of those counts is getting doubled. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. There are such a thing as 64th notes, and you'll generally see those at slower tempos. And basically the way it works is 8th notes have that one bar, or if it's a single 8th note by itself, it has that one flag. 16th notes have the 2 bars, or if it's one by itself, 2 flags. 32nd notes have the 3. 64th notes have 4. 128th notes have 5. Next, we have dotted notes. First one we'll talk about, because it's the easiest to wrap your brain around, is the dotted half note. So whenever we see a dot after a note, what that means is we're taking half of that note's value and adding it onto itself. So in the case of a half note gets 2 beats. Now, when we take that dot, we're adding half of that onto itself. So half of 2 is 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. So our dotted half note gets 3 beats. In 4/4 a dotted half note takes up 3/4 of the measure. And then we have 1 quarter note at the end. So if we were to play this rhythm, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, on occasion, you will see a dotted whole note when there's 6 or more beats per measure. Because a dotted whole note, we take half of 4, we get 2, we add that onto itself, that gives us 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Things are going to get complicated because next we have dotted quarter note. So a quarter note gets just 1 beat, and half of 1 is, well, 1/2. So we add 1/2 onto 1, we get 1.5. So right, a quarter note gets 1.5 beats. So the easiest way to think about it is that it takes up the space of 3 eighth notes. So when you're counting it, you really want to think about those eighth note subdivisions that are happening inside it. Like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Here's our drum beat. I sped it up just a little bit. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and. So there's dotted quarter note. Next, we have dotted eighth note. We're getting really into the thick of math class now. An eighth note gets half a beat. Half of a half is a quarter, so we add a quarter onto a half, we get 3/4. So just like before, a dotted quarter note is the same as 3/8 notes, time-wise. A dotted eighth note is the same as 3/16 notes. So this is where you really got to subdivide if you want to nail these rhythms. 1, a 2E, and a 3E, and a 4E, and a 1. 3E, and a 4E, and a 1E, and a 2E, and a 3E, and a 4E, and a 1E, and a 2E, and a 3E, and a 4E, and a. So next, though, triplets. First is eighth note triplets. Eighth note triplet, we got 3 notes per beat. Triplet, 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 triplet. Next, we have 16th note triplets, which basically there's 6 per beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. Triplet, 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 triplet. It's hard to say triplet that fast, but in my head, I'm definitely thinking triplet, 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 triplet. That's 16th triplets. Next, we have an interesting one, quarter note triplets, and there's 6 per measure. So beat has 4 beats per measure. We're going to get 6 even notes into that measure. Here's our beat. I took out the eighth note hi-hat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The reason the eighth notes were conflicting is because it's based on a triplet pulse. It's every other eighth note triplet in the measure. So if the eighth note triplet is triplet, 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 and we hit every other one, in my head I'm thinking triplet, 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 triplet. That gives us that rock steady quarter note triplet. And this is what trips a lot of people up because it's very similar to having just a bunch of dotted eighth notes. But those aren't even because we have a dotted eighth note is 3/16. at the end, there's that note that I hit that was right on beat 4, which was a whole quarter note, 4 16th notes worth of time. It's more like a 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 instead of a triplet bullet triplet bullet triplet bullet, because the quarter note triplet is not based on the 16th notes. You got to completely ignore the 16th note pulse and think about your 8th note triplet pulse. Triplet, 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 triplet. 1 2 3 4. The next thing we have to talk about is swing feel. So here we have on the page 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, but that little symbol up there, you'll see this in like jazz music. Instead of 2 even notes, you have a slightly longer one and then a shorter one. And the basic way to think about it is like the triplets, triplet, 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 triplet. But you can have varying levels of swing. If you're even 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, you can move that second one back, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, and make it closer to that imaginary second beat over here. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. When you're playing in a group setting especially, you kind of got to listen to what the other players are doing, and you all kind of have to match and gel together, and that's part of being in the pocket, is where exactly you're placing all those little micro meta subdivisions. And then a 16th note swing works exactly the same way. It's just that we're talking about 16th notes instead of 8th notes. So we still have our even 8th notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the 16th notes normally would be 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. But with a swing 16th, it would be. And beyond this point, we can kind of start to venture into different time signatures where not only is there other numbers than 4 in the top, all kinds of numbers at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, 9, 4, 10, 4. Then when you start changing that bottom number, then you start thinking of different notes as your base value. Like 6/8, for instance, instead of having 6 quarter notes, you have 6/8 notes. And that really was more about the written music, more so than it is what you're actually playing. Because you can play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and 6 and 6, 6/8, or 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're in 4, just playing triplets, which can also be called 12/8. That's a very common time signature. So it's kind of more how the music is flowing, how it's written out, how the band's thinking about it, that sort of thing. Like, comment, and subscribe if you dig what you're seeing and you chill with this vibe. And if you're looking for some notes to play using these rhythm techniques you just learned, maybe check out my video where I talk about the modes and how the modes work specifically on the bass, but you can apply it to any instrument because it's all the same. It's all music, just how you play it, doing this instead of, I don't know, a trumpet. Yeah, or saxophone.